Hello and welcome! Welcome to Drakenmemoria! Yes, it's a weird start, because there's only me and Audiens. Maybe Remy, we're not sure. Um, yeah, rough start. Rough start this week. Fisher's dealing with personal. Well, Fisher and Tobiyashi are dealing with personal things. Um, Jorg is in transit because he had a power out. And I don't know about Remy. Hopefully he'll be there because that's putting a lot on the audience's shoulder to carry y'all through this session. But yeah, well, if it's just me and audience, you'll have a good example of what playing with just one player can look like. Yeah, proof that it's possible to have very few players. Alright, so, if you want to watch this become Dungeons and Dragons, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you with us. If you don't want to watch this, well, I understand. And I hope you'll be there next week. Because, man, we'll be really unlucky if it's the same thing next week. Pretty sure we're going to be at least 4 next week. But, alright. So, if you enjoyed the thunderstorm in the background, that's Ambient Mixer. If you enjoyed the world map, that's WonderDraft. If you enjoy the battle map, that's Dungeon Alchemist. And if you enjoy the town maps, that's Canvas of King, of which I still haven't put the information below the window. You can find it on Steam. For everything else, the information is just below the window if you want to use any of those software. Yeah, alright. So, now we gotta start this with just audience, and hopefully Remy will be there by the time we finish the introduction, because that's gonna be weird. I don't know. Should I should I start with what happened last episode, since today's not gonna be linked with last episode?
I don't think you need to, since it's not really.
Yeah, no,
relevant.
probably not. But at least to give a little bit of context to what we are doing tonight. So, don't need a thunderstorm in the background. Anyways, it's affecting audience's volume, and I need that volume to be at a decent level. Alright, so, last episode, well, a lot of things happened. A lot of digging happened, and then realization came in, and at the very end of the episode, a dream came to each one of our characters, and they saw a bit of what was going to happen. So tonight we are going to explore. I'd really wish I could increase the size of your window, since at most there would be only 4, but eventually I just fused every single window inside of the overlay, so that would be a lot of work and very, very little time to try and adapt that. Right. All right. So, well, with this, let's get started. Hopefully, Remy's still dark here, so let's try and summon him. We need Remy a lot. Alright, so let's go on this. So as you can imagine, I didn't plan for this session. Um, but enough was given to me. So instead of doing something that should normally be very small and probably happened next night, well, who knows? Maybe it's going to actually happen next night, but for this, and because dreams are slightly weird sometimes, audience, you're not completely going to be there on when we are. But what happens is that when you fell asleep, you were very troubled with so many things that happening right now. So many things that you've always took for granted, that you've always believed with all of your heart that was true, and the undisputable reality, the only truth, and everything you left your hometown with to convince the world that dragons were the original gods, those who helped everyone, and with the lore of our world, also probably meaning that the deep belief that the original continent fell because of arcane constructions. Because that's the two predominant belief in your world. One states that it's the fault of dragon, one states that it is the fault of the machines. Well, why not delve into a bit more story? Can I find that element really quickly? Let's see. Research. You'll have to bear with me because I really wasn't prepared for this. Alright. Okay. Each name refers to one of the two views. So, for those who didn't know, the world in which everyone evolves right now, there is a duality in the world. Some people call it Alvarast and some people call it Olvarast. Alvarast meaning landfall and Olvarask meaning arcfall. Alvarast is the most used denomination. Alright. Oh, come on. Well, that's just mean. And there's only 3? Oh, come on. That's just being mean. All of my notes, it's really just being mean. Alright. So, Arcfall referring to the original world being actually an arc. And Alvarast, meaning that the original world was a continent which fell from the sky. I believe I told you at least once before, audience, which view your god favored. Didn't I tell you at one point?
Well, I know what he told me, which is about the dragons, like, holding, which I think had something to do with which view he wanted in the breaking, but I think that, I'm trying to remember which one that was. It was tied closer to, what was it tied? It was to the...
Okay, this God wishing to say that the building arc. I can't such a fair already did. Eventually, on the surface, puts dragon in center and place, along with the place of all that came from the present second star of its construct, and gives reason for their construction having been elevated. Both story have their facts, suppose the beginning story. That's annoying. I was sure it was easy to identify. No, that's okay. It's not that important. It's just me grasping at straws to figure out if you can. Figure this out. Yes, I know. Come on. Not darkness. That's annoying. Wow, in my original, I wrote the word dark a lot. All right. Well, never mind. Anyways, so there's always been this duality, and your god most likely has favored the one where dragons are at center. So you've always seen this, and of course, because since it's not the fault of the dragon, this means that the world being the way it is right now is the fault of the machines. So right there, you've been stuck with a reality that it's not Fisher's fault if the world fell apart. And not only that, but you've been working very closely with machines from another world. And even though there was a war on their world, they seem pretty good and nice. So that works weird in your mind. Then there's the reality of everyone else interacting with you. All of the other gods. Originally, you thought your god was the most powerful being in the universe. That quickly fell apart when you found yourself in front of just a piece of metal, not even coming from a god itself, but from a servant of the god, which held a minute fraction of a footstep slowly disappearing on the beach, just like sand losing its shape with water. And it nearly completely drove you insane. Now there's also the concept of another god called the End. Well, referred to as the End, which even the people of the garden are afraid of. At least they're trying to make sure that it never realizes that they're there. Because it could bring the end of your world. Even though your god is supposed to be there watching over it all. Then there was you coming back after a year and finding that your religion may have been corrupted in some way. By another god wishing to punish you for having humiliated it the first time you talked to it. So many things. So many difficult things for poor Audiens. And so when you fell asleep, you were thinking about that. Thinking about the honesty that you had with maybe yet a new god courting you. One who tried to twist your mind into becoming less, into accepting that some evil is a good thing. And where was your God in all of this? Why didn't he interfere? Is he testing you? Is it because he can't? Because this God is more powerful? So just for a bit of context, with everything, with all of this going through Audiens's mind, as he is slowly falling asleep, if this is happening the day after everything that happened last episode, probably you're also struggling with everyone that died after a village got leveled. So what's happening in Audiens's mind as he's falling asleep and slowly the world is becoming smaller and smaller?
Well, it's a little, I think, as Audiens said. We'll say whatever in the vague sense of the future sleep this is, but probably somewhat soon. Audiens, kind of what he told the other god, where he hasn't really shown his friends, but how much he's been struggling with the fact that everything has kind of been changing, and that he's, his religion that he's always had faith, trusted, and kind of led in seems to have, almost like fully turned, not against him per se, but against the ideals he holds dear and values, and kind of why he initially brought this religion and created it in the way it was, why he's been preaching it his whole life. And just, seeing all these like people almost die for it, or die because of it, really causing a blow to him. And just thinking back to his village and kind of where it all started, and what, maybe what he didn't see, where it went wrong. Perhaps, his mind's been opened so much through all his adventures, and also just some of the almost like traits of his race have been lifted, almost kind of thinking back to, is there stuff he initially missed? What is, why is it seem to be going so wrong now when he thought he was doing all the right things?
Well, definitely. Why is it going all wrong if you're actually doing all the right things? That's a very valid question that anyone can have. So as your mind drifts and goes back to that village that you grew up in, all of the teachings you had and all of the people you met while you were there, how devoted and how simple everything was, feels like your village is what fills your mind. And when you open your eyes again, you're not where you were. You're in a place you haven't been in a long time. Right now, you're very young. Probably 8 or 9 years old for a dragonborn. Probably even slightly younger, because
like 4 or 5.
Well, the evolution of dragonborn is weird. They age really fast for the first few years of their life, and then they start aging slightly slower for after that. So even though you were 8 or 9 years old, the equivalent for being human would probably be 5 or 6 years old. So this means you probably wake up in the same home, since you told me that your village followed the traditional construction of Dragonborn family unit and things like this, which means that at 3 years old, you went with your father because you were a male Dragonborn. So you probably wake up in this because your father was a weapon master. You probably wake up in this kind of barrack. Very early. Your father was he was always kind to you, but he was the best weapon master in your village, so there was an element of being very strict, of
Yeah.
being an authority. So, no favors. Wake up at dawn like everyone else. The reason why you remember this day is because it was the first day, the first time that your father took you to see the dragon which would become your god. He had told you the day before that many of his disciples were going to go. And even though you're a bit young, your future god had expressed an interest in you, almost as if he recognized you. So, this is that morning. You get woken up by, there was this annoying guy inside of your barrack who is making a point of always being up a little early than everyone else because he was maybe 2 years older than you, and because he knew that it was your father who was there, and he was kind of afraid that he'd give you a favored treatment in some way. He always used to wake you up in a way that's a bit harsher than everyone else. And he made sure that you were the first one to awaken, so you wouldn't get woken up by him waking up the others. So on that morning, you wake up in a very violent way as you're falling from your bed, from your cot, face first on the floor because he just tilted the bed and screamed, "Audiens!" You should have been prepared for that.
I just remember answering, I was, and I'll start doing push-ups on the ground to lift. No, just getting ready for my normal morning workout before we head out.
You see his nostril just flaring when he says this. He sort of half believes you, but stomps away. See everyone else in the barrack just looking at you. One of them doesn't want to laugh because you are slightly bigger than him, but he finds this hilarious. The others, one of them sort of have the reflex of trying to maybe go and help you, and then he looks at the door where the other one left, and sort of, maybe not, maybe I shouldn't.
I'll give the rest of the Dragonborn a wink and kind of stand up, brush myself off. Get ready, get in position for my father to come out. Make sure my bed's straightened, everything looks good. Very, militaristic almost in a way, making sure I'm straightened, my bed's straightened, everything looks good for him to appear. And then go stand in line with the rest of the Dragonborn.
You got another Dragonborn. This one is probably gold in origin. It's a bit hard because not all Dragonborn, it's not obvious in every Dragonborn what their descendants is. Some of them have this weird mix of the two types of dragons which have something in common. So one of them having a rust color. You're not sure if he has a red descendants or a golden descendants. There is this other one over there, which feels like a bit of a gray hue in scales, which means he's either a silver or white dragon. Feels like a weird, feels like an authentic mix-up of the origins. So you have this dragonborn of the rusted color, just looking at you for a brief moment. You're maybe an inch taller than him. He's, you probably don't see him as a rival, but you are a little better than him in combat. But he strives very much to try and be the best he can, and he listens and looks for everyone, always takes advice. He's taken a few advice from you. He doesn't see you as a rival. You get the feeling that he sort of sees you as a friend. I don't know how two-way this is, but he's standing right next to you, so a bit of eager. So, you're gonna go see, well, today?
Yes. Excited. It's my first time meeting him. It's a great honor.
It is. You know who's going to be there.
Yeah?
Ah, come on. Don't be like that. You know she's going to be there.
It'll be good to see her again. It's been a long time. Haven't seen her much since coming to live with my father. He's too strict, but it'll be good to see her again.
He has a brief moment where he's looking around and looking at you. I'm not sure we're talking about the same person. What were you talking again about?
Who were you talking about?
Both of you sort of have the... Oh, no, probably exactly the same person as you. It's an... Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's been a while since you've seen her.
Yeah.
How long exactly? You recognize he's fishing for information. He wants to know if you're talking about the same person. He just doesn't want to admit it.
Let's see. It would have been... See, I left to live with my father... What was that been? I'm 9, so...
6 years ago.
6 years ago, and I usually see her twice, so festivals, so 3-4 times a year maybe now, so it would have been 4 or 5 months ago.
Right. Yes, and your mother is such a nice person.
Yeah.
You can't help but hear that little interrogation mark at the end instead of exclamation mark at the end.
Yeah, I definitely miss my mother as well.
Yeah.
It'll be good to see her.
Yeah, you don't talk all that much about her.
Well, I was only with her when I was very young, and I remember, she was a very comforting presence, as all our mothers are. She was I remember her being very kind and always caring for me, but I guess she's always very happy to see me, but there's a certain separation, I think, between. I mean, you know how our culture works. It's just,
I
I
know, I
haven't spent
know.
nearly as much time with her, and it's I guess I just always have so much on my mind with training with my father and everything that it's just I don't think about her too often.
Oh no, definitely. I can understand that. I haven't seen my mother in a long while. Actually, she's been part of the. Well, hope nothing happened to her. Remember that hunting party that left a few months ago? They
I
have,
did. I heard about that.
yeah,
Yeah.
they haven't come back. She was part of it.
Oh, that's well, you know how it is up in the mountains sometimes.
I know.
Unexpected weather. It's people can get stuck longer. I wouldn't. A couple months isn't too much to worry. I think
No,
we've seen it before.
yeah, no, and she's very competent. She's an amazing ranger. It's just that I'm a bit worried, especially since with the rumor of a frost giant. Um,
Yeah. Well, I'm sure Drahasavan will take care of it. He doesn't. One of the reasons
yeah,
is he usually protects our village from any large other monsters that come too close to this area and his territory. So
yeah, and he has to protect Kohornathil all the time. So,
yeah. So I'm sure he'll take care of it.
have you ever thought about how your life would have been if you would have went with your mother instead?
I
Your
think that
father is a good weapon master, and obviously you've inherited that, so you became a good fighter. But what would you have been if you'd gone with your mother?
well, my mother always had, or my father always said, my mother had a way with knowing the land that he never did. One of the reasons he fell in love with her was
Hmm.
just her ability to kind of read the land and the soil and just know this area, know how to hunt, she's always been an incredible cooker, ranger, hunter, just survivalist in general. So I'm sure I would, have learned probably would have learned all the survival skills and learned about all the herbs and trees and different animals of this area and how to skin and hunt them, and probably more general knowledge. I'd probably be a better hunter than I am now, but you
Yeah,
know,
well, and better cook. Whew.
and a better cook. Although she's actually taken some time when I've been with her to teach me some rudimentary things, which is why I'm still better than most of you lot.
Or so you say. I mean, You're a better sword than me,
Well,
but
listen, I only ever get like halfway through a lesson with her before I'm usually called off, so it's not my fault that I experiment the other half.
I know, I know. Well, who knows? Maybe, maybe your mother um, will bring her back today. Who knows?
Yeah, we'll see.
All right.
All right, my father should be out soon. You should stand at attention.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. You stand straight. This is best. All right. For a brief moment, your attention just almost like a damaged record. It just skips a little bit, and your mind floats for a brief moment. It lingers on the possibility of what your life would have been if you had gone with your mother. Either because you would have been born a female, or maybe because your tribe would have adopted a more modern way of doing things and you would have had the choice. Your mind can't help but to dwell on that possibility. would your god still have selected you if you'd spend this long always outside of the village? I mean, green dragons often are associated with the forest, so maybe, but maybe not also.
Audience laughs to himself in his mind. Probably would have ended up becoming some ranger, maybe a scout instead of a paladin for his, perhaps, or a champion. He might have still selected me, but my role probably would have differed.
Yeah, probably. The next few moments happen just as you remember all of your morning, nearly all of your morning happening. Your father comes in, looks at everyone, straighten up those who've been slacking a little bit, takes one more moment than he usually does in front of you. You didn't remember this when you were small, but nowadays, because your insight, because your perception, because of Remy, that keeps showing you how to analyze people's face. Um, you sort of see in his eyes there is a mix of fear and pride. Pride that his son is being selected by his god for what he doesn't know, and that's what's scaring him a little bit. Now, in traditional dragonborn culture, even though he is your dad, you're not that close to him. It's not the same proximity as humans. You know he's your dad, and you can feel that connection. And sometimes it does happen that when he talks to you, he becomes more familiar with you, but he also remains your teacher. So there's always that little bit of distance that he always keeps. But in that brief moment, that stern, stoic face he always had broke slightly. Pride and fear. The day moves forward a little bit in your mind. Well, it feels like it's moving forward, but because of the nature of dreams, you remember what happened during the day, but you don't actually relive it.
Mm-hmm.
You have a few moments where you remember how awkward, but also anxious you were during the breakfast. Because, you've been asked personally by your god. Some found this very impressive, some were a bit jealous. Some tried to convince you that it was because your god wanted to eat you alive because you'd done something bad, but that's the guy who just pulled you out of bed by shoving you down.
Audience remembers the look on his father's face and kind of laughs to himself, probably similar to the emotions he somewhat felt on that day too. A mix of pride and fear.
You remember leaving the barrack and walking there. It felt like it lasted the entire day, but it actually only took 20 minutes. The barrack was at the limit of the village, a good place to look over the village and also have ample space to train. It's easy to just get everyone outside and start training. But if the village is attacked, it's usually going to be the wall that is attacked first, so perfect position for you. There is a secondary barrack on the other side of the village, so there's always been a slight rivalry between your barrack and the other barrack, but it's always been more of a sporting rivalry than an actual let's kill them all rivalry.
Yeah.
And actually, it's your father's brother who is in charge of that barrack. So there's always been a little bit of pride and sibling rivalry between the two barracks. When you get there, on the other side of the town center, town square, you see the others. Your rival team. Someone has also been selected in their group. This Dragonborn. This one's really hard to figure out what is his ancestry. He feels like he's a mishmash of so many different things. He has the horn of black dragons. His arms are sort of a grayish color. So you got black and white dragon? No, okay, that's a weird mix.
Audience does remember him. He was always the, in terms of sports, almost the captain of their team, the star of the other barracks, the one who always seemed to, if the other barracks did win a game, seemed to pull off some incredible play for them, whether it was a fighting tourney or some obstacle course. Definitely someone Audience saw at his early age, very early age, as kind of the best of the other barracks. So Audience is not surprised he was selected.
Is that the Dragonborn that left the village before you had time to officially challenge him? Or is that another one?
I thought the other one was a little bit older, like not in the same classes.
I'm just... So, as you can figure out, there is a little bit of all of this that I'm building as I'm going.
I would say no. I would say the other one was older. Right. He was like
already finished.
Yeah, he was enough to where, which is why Audience said earlier he hadn't thought of as much of a rival, because he is kind of already like making a name for himself, like older than Audience. Like he was out of the process. This was just kind of his early.
All right. So yeah, for people watching this, since this session was not planned, it is as much a moment to let audience elaborate on things, and I am literally building as we're going along with everything he told me about his past and his desire to elaborate a little bit on this. So yeah, some questions like your mother. You never talked to me about your audience's mother, so that's why I gave you a choice in what she actually was, and you chose a ranger. All right. So looking at the other side, you see him. He's that weird dragonborn, completely mishmash of different types of dragon. He's standing there, really almost convinced that he's been selected, and you're sort of the second choice. In his demeanor, in the way that he's standing, it feels like it's obvious he's thinking that.
Whatever, Audience thinks he was always arrogant.
Oh man, maybe I should do something really mean to you right now. What was his name? And then there's
his name was Gregor.
Oh, good lord. Even his name sounds human? Oh, man. What a weird mishmash of things. Well, maybe we can always giving a more dragonborn twist to this. So...
Drahor. There you go. Drarhor.
Okay. Darahor. Drahor. Alright. Direct rival when growing up. Alright. Who knows? Maybe you'll encounter him again in the future. When you think about it, every single name you give me right now might be someone you'll have to kill one day. So
Yeah.
So you're standing there, and of course, because he's in front of his brother, so essentially your uncle, in human terms, of course, you weren't raised to think of the family unit in that way. Are you there? Okay,
Yes.
Good. I couldn't see your eyes blinking, so I was like, oh, damn, is he frozen? Okay. I guess Remy is having a really bad time. So, alright. Okay. So, make sure that everyone is standing straight and ready for what's coming. And of course, first ones to arrive are the priests. And at that moment, you sort of realize what your friend inside of the barrack. Do you have a name for your friend in the barrack? Or do I have to find this one?
Nah, I'm gonna have you do this one.
Okay. Okay. We'll probably find a name during the break. I'm horrible at finding names. Alright, so you sort of realize what your friend was talking about at that moment, because you see all of the priests arriving, and at that time she was just an initiate, but Kialkani is there, and she's walking very focused with the censer in her hand, spreading the familiar scent that always came before his arrival. And you have that brief moment of recognition. Oh yeah, that's what he was talking about. Wait a minute, why did he think I'd be... Because you've already established that you had sort of a small, minute, maybe kind of a crush on her, but, you know.
Well, we're probably the closest. We'd always been childhood friends before I left with my father, and then have always tried to keep up since then.
Yeah.
We were very close as children, and I think people know that. So they also think they tease me about it.
Yeah.
It's not as much.
Let's add this.
Plus, she was one of the earliest initiates to ever get chosen by the dragon, which is impressive in its own right.
So, kind of a progeny. Interesting. That's going to be something for her stat sheet.
All right. She was terrible at everything she did. Clumsy. Unintelligent. Bad. Definitely had no reason ever to be made like the high priest of the...
All right. No, that's okay. That's okay. So you have that brief moment where you see her and you have that recognition. Oh, yeah, that's what he means. Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, no, sort of everyone sort of is against your will, kind of shipping the two of you together because you spend time outside and you keep talking to her. Probably for you, however, the interest is two ways. I mean, she's probably the dragonborn that you know the most. You've spent a lot of time with her. Probably not just a childhood friend, but a family friend in the sense that probably your parents both had their clutch at the same time, which means you were all born at the same time and probably were raised in the same environment. But also, she's in direct contact with your god. And being so talented, like you said, a progeny.
Yeah.
I can't help but to hear Gladys's voice saying, "We both said things you are going to regret." There's always been this fascination as to why she was chosen this early and what is it to always be near, always feeling the presence of your God. Because at that age, you sort of had that feeling that you felt him before, but that might also has just been your father talking to you about what it was to be inspired, and you felt that rumbling in your stomach at that moment. Oh, I'm inspired! I
Audience
think.
remembers while talking to her on this day how he was starting to get very nervous but trying to hide it because he was like, oh, she's an old hand at this in front of the god. I can't show that I'm nervous to meet him. I'm just very much trying to play it off cool that he was excited and ready, but at the same time starting to feel more and more nervous and scared as any child would.
Yeah. She was right there, right in front of you, as you started hearing that rumble in the ground, as your god was slowly making its way from behind a large structure. Your rival next to you, almost too confident. And her looking at you and looking at him, and you can swear you saw a little wink at one point, but it happened at the same time as you heard the ground go, and you sort of looked right where your god was supposed to appear at that moment when she did this. So yeah, you think, but maybe not. And that was the first time that you saw him walking from behind this large building where you all worship him. You'd seen him change size. So, well, no, at that time you hadn't, but you would
No.
later on. So, when your memory comes back, when you look at this, knowing that it's a memory, having that slight moment where your consciousness sort of pushes away from the dream and come back, you have that little acknowledgement that, oh wow, he looked so huge.
Well, Audience remembers the first time he ever saw him quite clearly because it was the first time Audience in his life immediately. I mean, he'd known people were strong. He'd always thought of his father very strong, his uncle from the other things. He'd remembered one time at a small tournament they had his the guy, what's his name, coming to visit because he had happened to be back in the village and recognizing Atherin and recognizing how strong he was. But this is the first time Audience had ever felt true overwhelming power. utterly overwhelming.
That aura that came with the dragon that just filled everything and sent shivers down your spine. Later on in life, you would recognize this as being the aura of fear or awe, depending on what happens. That was the first time that you came in contact with this, and so much went through your mind, but also so little. Because there was that moment of complete and utter software failure as you saw it arriving.
Audience remembers being utterly rooted to the ground, almost afraid to move, but afraid to look away at the same time. Just still. Utterly still. Frozen, some would say.
Well, the guy standing next to you sure did, because when you felt that power just hitting you like a wall, you heard that voice from Darahor next to you just saying, don't worry. He'll probably select you next year.
I just remember thinking, even at that time, how unintelligent someone could be to not recognize power at that time. And though he had a respect for Darahor for not, he understood that it was also a weakness. Or now Audiens, more, I think not at that time, Audiens did. Audiens felt more like, I'm not going to get picked. Darahor's doing better than me. Now Audiens looks back at it and was like, Darahor was honestly the foolish one for not being able to feel the power, to feel the respect of what might come with that, of making a mistake.
Confidence. Too much confidence can actually change things. And in hindsight, your God might have actually seen that. Because as he is walking down slowly, you feel your rival next to you, confident and nearly trying to goad you into feeling less or making a step back, sort of confirming that he's supposed to be there and you're not, because he would have been able to just scare you just by word. In hindsight, Audiens probably also has that moment of, if I hadn't been this frozen in place because of everything that I was looking at, maybe he might have succeeded, but everything just fell silent when he was walking toward you. Everyone talking, whispering, you couldn't hear anything they were saying. All you could hear was nothing came true except the eyes of your God looking at you, looking at the person next to you, then looking at you again. The one who broke the silence was your childhood friend, announcing Jehoshaphat to everyone. It helped you to just snap back into reality a little bit.
Audience remembers quickly kneeling and bowing his head instead of entitled. Unfreezing, snapping back, remembering what his father had told him, and quickly kneeling down and bending his head.
There was a part of you who thought maybe this is why your God chose you, because you showed something the other one didn't. Humility. in front of true power. At that moment, your rival doubted. And you saw it, you felt it. And at the very same moment, your god looked at you and stopped even considering your rival next to you. His head slowly snaked toward you, lowering just a little bit from your point of view, hovering over your head. And you heard his voice for the first time. Audience, if I am not mistaken.
Audiens remembers not even speaking yet, not knowing if he had permission to speak, simply nodding.
Yes, it is you. I have seen you. Seen what you can do. Seen what you could become. How interesting. So much potential. But you need to be molded first. No one is born their best self. When he rose his head, you almost felt the air lifting with him. There was nearly that suction that came with it. His head moved so fast that you had it. Whew, and his head was high atop everyone, looking at everyone else. Well then, I know this was quick, but when you are in front of potential, the choice is obvious. Rise, audience.
Audiens remembers rising, never breaking, his eyes never fully meeting the dragons, but never breaking away from his chest, never looking to the right, to the left, staring ahead.
The dragon looks at your father, says, well, it does seem your barrack has shown the greatest of potential this year. You know what comes next? He needs to find his name. His real name. Thank you for your presence. It was, as always, such an honor and a pleasure to be amongst all of you. I will be back soon. So much interesting events are about to happen. Everyone stayed completely silent. Even your childhood friend, you sort of noticed her hands shaking just a little bit. Could have been because she was intimidated, but also that sensor is big. Maybe she's just getting tired of holding it like this. And then he leaves.
Audiens, as he's leaving, not as he remembered in his dream. In his dream, he was too overwhelmed to do anything but stare straight ahead to process the fact that he had been chosen, then still honestly frozen by the pure power he felt. But now Audiens, and remember, it's out of dream, tries to look, tries to remember, tries to look at it with new eyes. It's the first time seeing his god. What did he see? What did he miss something? Was he, as he looks at the dragon, what was the sense he got? Did he miss some cues as a child? Now that he's older, now that he's more aware, what did he feel? What would that be, an insight roll?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's gonna be with a +0. That's okay. All right, that wasn't that great. That was only an 8.
You're still a bit stuck in all of the emotion coming back from this moment. I mean, you were able to gain just a little bit of perspective, especially since now you have actually met a dragon, which, to be quite honest, was larger than you've ever seen your god be. As you're trying to remember this, you sort of also feel the difference as your mind just slightly detached from the moment and you start floating a little bit. You remember how it felt being in the presence of Azalta, a dragon 1,500 years old, so powerful that his breath damaged a warship, a siege engine capable of piercing the defenses of a castle. But that dragon managed to push through those defenses of that ship.
It most likely might have even destroyed it if the ship had not fled.
Probably. With the barrier down, it would have been easy for a beast of that size to simply tear through its hull. Simply grabbing it would probably have been enough to get through the armor and start peeling off parts of the ship. At least in your mind it is. There is a moment where, there's so much happening in that brief moment. There is the acknowledgement that Azalta feels more powerful than anything your memory can muster about your god. Azalta has never visited you in your dream, but being in his presence was more overwhelming than what you have been feeling right now. Because now you can at least discern the difference between your overwhelmed feeling and the overwhelming energy coming from the dragon.
Audiens also wonders about one other thing about this dream that stood out to him.
Okay.
And perhaps didn't. He remembers as a child and for most of his life always being like, you know, he was honored, he was worthy. That is why the dragon chose him. But he thinks back now to why. Why did it seem like there was a small bit of recognition in the dragon's eyes? Why would he have known who I was? Just catches at Audiens' mind a little bit from some of the more recent things he's learned. But
yeah. And that is actually exactly the only thing that I was about to underline with an 8. Why did he say he recognized you? Where did that come from? The dreams move forward a little bit. It's maybe a year later. Part of your training now has taken a bit more of a holy element to it. You've barely acquired the rest of your name. We are used to hearing you being just called Audiens, but as you have told me before, your name is a bit longer than this.
Yep. Audiens Autumn Drahasavir. Name of my clan. And attached to the dragon.
It felt unreal from time to time when you think about it. The champion of a god? That brief moment that the dream takes you to is... It's nearly night. You were lingering a little bit because that day you had to practice your faith. You're essentially being trained to put your energy and your faith into your strike. Someone was trying to teach you to smite. Of course, that involved being in the presence of many priests. And so, on that little day, that end of the day, standing next to a basin of water, you're standing next to Kielkani. You remember she is looking at you right now. Because she just asked you a question. Now I'm gonna go with my really annoying DM / moment of game. What was that question again?
She just asked me a question.
You've just spent an entire day training to smite something, trying to recognize that moment and fuse it with energy.
She had just asked me, what do you... I remembered that day because I was struggling. Well, I had full faith. I'd always had full faith. I always seemed to struggle to initially channel it. And unlike her, where she seemed to always just pick up on spells and anything priestly with light almost instantly, you know,
She could already cast cantrip at that time.
Yeah. I had struggled. She asked, well, I'd been asked her to maybe help me, which is why she'd been standing next to me, and she'd asked, what do you feel? What do you feel? What like flows through you when you try and strike? And I remember looking at her at that time, and I was like, I don't know. I mean, I have full faith in Drahasaven and his power and his that, and I always try and feel like I channel his power. But it's so hard. I never feel like I can connect it to me. You know, I don't understand how you do it. You always seem so connected, just to bring forth his power in an instant, at a thought. I don't know.
It's simply about focusing. I know it's easy to say, and I know that sometimes you need help. Here, something that I've often done when having a little bit of trouble concentrating. You remember last year, a few weeks after Drasavan chose you, a group of monks came to the village, and they were talking about how they use their chi to empower everything they do. It dawned on me what they were doing. Why would they always make these really wide movements, very focused on everything that they were doing? That's because they're concentrating. It's the same thing as when wizard casts spells. All of those words and magical object that they are using and focus. It's all meant to focus on a single thing, because the time that they took to find that focus means something for them. So when they take the focus out, it simply focus their minds on it. And then the words that they're using, it helps them focus on it. And then there's the monks, always with those wide movement. Why? Because it forces them to be in the moment, to be concentrated on their movement, on where their hands are, or their feet are. Maybe you should try and do a combination of those. Try calling out to Drahasaven when you are smiting someone out loud. And maybe at one point you're going to be able to start doing this without saying it out loud. Focus on your blade. Focus on the movement. It's okay. Right now, you are learning. It's okay if you do moves a little too wide. I know your father would probably... I'm sorry, I know I'm not supposed to use that term, but nevertheless, he would probably tell you that you are telegraphing. You are warning everyone of what you're about to do. But you know how to fight. So maybe right now what you need to do is exaggerate it. Remember that exercise that he used to make you all do to help you have a good fighting stance? He would nearly make you all fight crouching with a 90-degree angles on your knees.
Yeah, I remember you mocked me for that.
Yeah, well, you always kept pushing too much, and so it looked loud. It looked like the Nem. You kept saying that it was your between your legs. It was too big, but come on, I've seen you naked. You're not that big.
I'm still growing.
Yes. But remember what happened after that exercise.
Yeah.
Your stance improved. So maybe it's a time where you should exaggerate just a little bit. Call it out! When you're about to strike, draw 7!
Audience remembers thinking about it. Thinking about, instead of the power, thinking about more like in terms of fighting. His stance, his focus, his flow, how he liked fight, and then slowly going through the motion. And then as he went through the motion, feeling a verbal urge and calling out Drahasaven as he struck in front of him.
It took a little bit of time, but it ended up working. Huh. Make an investigation roll. Let's see how that puzzle piece fits in your mind.
That was a nat 20.
Oh. There's something about that hits you. Like an answer you don't want to know. But it's there, and it's because of that. Why is it sitting in your mind? Why doesn't it want to leave? You stop doing it out loud, calling your god when you strike. But in your mind you always do it. Why is that lingering in your mind? I can't give you all the answers, but because it's a natural 20, I am willing to go to the edge of giving you the answer by underlining this is an important element of what you're trying to figure out.
Why is it that I always call his name in my mind when I strike?
Why is it sticking in your mind as if you just found an answer, but you can't figure out the question?
Audiens makes a mental note to not call, or try and actively not call his name, to unlearn, maybe at some point. Not maybe in the next fight, but at some point when he has some time on his own to see, almost unlearn how he's always done it, and see what happens.
But even so, it lingers in your mind. Let's try and not call out his name. That may help you figure out something, but it even feels like it's a question you asked yourself at one point. You finally have the answer, but you've forgotten. What was the question?
All right.
Oh, that's interesting. Your mind moves forward. Oh, well, actually, usually we take our break at that time. Do you want a small break?
Sure, we can take a small break before we jump into the next stream segment.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't know who's watching right now, but if you're enjoying this, we'll be back in 15 minutes. Hold on. Let's at least give you a little bit of music, a little bit of time for people to go to the bathroom, and maybe even audience to try and figure out a few things that came back to his mind. We'll see you in 15 minutes. Bye. Hello, we're back. And we're still alone with audience. Fear not. The story is moving along well. All right. So, audience has seen part of his past, how he became the follower of this god, how it was for him, and some of the struggle that he faced. Now, in hindsight, were you having trouble believing? Or was your conscience resisting? Interesting question. That question coagulates in your mind a little bit. And your dream pushes forward about a year and a half. You're starting to be pretty good. You're starting to be a force to be reckoned with. I mean, you're not quite there yet. You can't cast spells or anything like this, but you're starting to feel it. You're starting to feel the might of your god. You're starting to realize how smithing is going to work. And although right now you can't fully control it, you've managed to call on the energy a few times. Um, well, both because it's a bit difficult, and if I'm not mistaken, you need to be level 2 to Divine Smite. So, so
Weirdly, one time it was with the chair. I don't know. No, I'm kidding.
no, not a chair, a bench. Even there was an evolution. So yeah, you've been able to start feeling the power of your god. You've been able to be inspired by it. Your god has visited you in your dreams a few times. Maybe in hindsight, it's helping you to see him as a god because in your dreams he can take on many forms, many shapes. But you have to admit, in person, you've always only seen him in his dragon form. Maybe that's nothing. I mean, why would he change his appearance in front of all of his followers? That's don't need the ducks in the background.
It does make Audiens remember. Audiens does remember it's a dream, but he does. This brings back to Audiens' mind remembering one time when he asked Kyokani if she had ever seen him in a different form. Because he knows dragon can switch forms. I don't know how she responded. How did she respond?
Well, I don't know why. There was those little sound, it sounds like a cat. um, well, she told you that, of course, she's seen him in other forms. I mean, not recently, but he's visited her many times, in her dreams, and time where she needed his help during her prayers. And you know how gods can be. Sometimes they say that it's one of their agents that they're sending you, but it's actually them in disguise. So yeah, of course. Especially when outside of the village, because not everyone would welcome a god amongst them. Some people would get scared. I mean, you've seen how humans can act when something too powerful is amongst them. They can get so riled up that they'll burn down their own village. Yeah, of course. Make an insight roll on this one.
19.
19. You're unsure if she is intentionally doing this, but I mean, her answer feels slightly evasive.
Looking back on it seems.
Looking back on it, of course.
Yeah.
At that time, it felt like a confirmation that, yeah, no, it's just because you're always in the village. You don't go out a whole lot. But looking back on it right now, I mean, it does feel a bit evasive for an answer. Maybe she just couldn't remember a moment, but maybe none had actually happened. And it's an easy answer. I was in front of one of his agent, which was actually him in disguise. Wink. It feels
But that's unfortunately, Audiens can't pull any more from that because his dream only gives him that conversation.
Yeah.
Oh well.
But
okay. Another thing to think about.
It's a valid point. Probably also brings the idea of, has anyone in your village ever seen your god other than in draconic form? At least a version that they can confirm. They're sure it's not, oh, he was in disguise. No. Azalta has never hidden the fact that he's a dragon, and you knew easily that it was him in humanoid form. Yeah, your god is slightly more elusive, but food for thought. Your mind floats a little bit again and goes to the moment of training. Maybe a few months, a year at most, forward. Your mind, whenever it moves from one place to another, sort of disconnects slightly. And you sort of have that moment where you can ponder on things in hindsight and looking at this. So you have that brief moment of being inside your body and thinking about everything else. Then you fall back into a memory. It's one of those weird moments during your training. You didn't see your father too often after you were chosen. I mean, yes, you kept training with him, but from that point on after, your time was spent near your god and near your father. So suddenly you went from seeing your father every single day to seeing him 3 or 4 times a week, and sometimes sleeping at the barrack, but also always basking in the aura of your god, always feeling his presence, his aura. But you needed to own your hone. Oh, all right. You needed to practice as often as you could, because it was becoming clear that you wouldn't become a priest. I mean, you had faith. To be a champion of a god, you need to have a lot of faith. But you're just not that talented with magic. I mean, in this world, there is that element that to have magic, you gotta have the gift. And most adventurer has the gift to one point, to some degree. And you have it more than warriors. But not as much as wizards and priests.
Definitely not as much as my friend. She left me in the dust.
Yeah, no, she's so good. She's incredible. As a matter of fact, she is extremely young. She's the same age as you, but right now she's sort of 12, nearly going on 13, and she can already cast first level spells. she's really good at this. It's unusual to be able to cast at such a young age. The strain on the body is a bit much, and you can see it. She can cast cantrips quite easily, but when it comes to a first level spell, you can see it. It drains her a lot. So it's sort of that odd acknowledgement that her closeness to magical energy exceeds what her body can actually take, which on a few occasions has worried you because she tried to cast a spell and overexerted herself, fell unconscious, then woke up a few moments later. There was that one moment where you really, really were worried because you barely could feel her pulse. She was just trying to heal, but it's a lot of energy. But it's understandable, Every time she casts, she touches a little bit of the god's energy.
I remember talking to her after how she couldn't heal someone if she killed herself in the process.
That's one of the moments where you realize just how deep and complete her faith was. Because her answer to you was, if Drasavan wishes me to die, then there is nothing I can do about it. All I can do is accomplish his will. He will protect me.
It's funny, because Audiens remembered even back then something, not fully, he respected her faith in that, but something bothering him about that answer. Something bothering him about
blind faith.
The idea of dying. Because, well, he had always thought that he would do anything for the village and fight and protect it. He never thought about dying for just the will of the god. To die to save his friend, to die to save something like that he thought about. He envisioned, of course, many times as all warriors to their heads going down in a blaze of glory, fighting some monster while protecting a friend or an ally. But to simply die in blind faith, I don't know. Do you remember that even way back then? Something about that just rubbing him slightly the wrong way.
And that's probably why you remember this training session right now. It's because of the look on the person that you were training with. You'd seen that on younger recruits. Their blind faith, just throwing themselves as if they were willingly becoming puppets for a god. There was this young recruit, very eager. You knew he admired you because, you had seen Drahasavan, and by that time you'd spent a lot of time very close to him. Some of them even wondered if he had actually blessed you at some point, touched you, in the way that the god does, not in the way that an odd priest does it. But has a god ever blessed you? Give you his blessing? Touch your head? Some of them were completely overwhelmed by that simple idea. And there was this young recruit that you were fighting against. You could see that he was lacking experience in combat. He was about as good as, I don't know, a rogue would be in a duel against someone armored and wielding a large weapon, and they with their dagger. I mean, the difference felt as huge as that. I mean, Rogues can be good, especially when they catch you off guard. But come on, if they don't catch you off guard, at least that was your opinion at that time. You managed to defeat him, but of course, you didn't want to kill him. But as he laid there on his knees, arm spread, looking at you, saying, "Do as the god will." That almost felt like someone plunged a dagger into you. It's training. What's wrong with him? It's training, and he's already ready to give his life to a god. That's a bit much.
Yeah.
That moment lingered in your mind. That night, you were thinking about it. And it was one of those nights where that rust-colored dragonborn stayed with you a little bit. Which apparently his name was Arkhalth. Arkhalth. He got named in the break. He was never one of faith, but he sort of grew into a really good warrior. Not quite as good as you, as always. You're always just a little ahead of him, but you recognize the potential. You recognize the speed at which he can analyze combat, and it's becoming clear that it's only a matter of a few years before, while you become a force to be reckoned with using the power of your god, he's going to become a force to be reckoned with a pole arm. In hindsight, you sort of have that moment of, oh yeah, he's going to become what Fisher could have been if he hadn't lost his time with sorcery.
Yeah.
He was sitting with you, eating, and at the time, you sort of felt like his fate may not be as much as he could, but now, with all of the question you're asking, it feels like maybe there was a little bit more to what he was saying. Because he was talking about that fight. He was saying, I mean, I don't even think he's going to become anything like you. And he's already willing to sacrifice himself. To be quite honest, I think you were easy on him. You could have defeated him twice as fast, and that's about as good as he's going to get. But was it just because of that he wanted to die? Feeling like he would gain honor because he died for Drosshaven?
God, it remembers back then having some armament. Well, at least it gives him purpose, right? Like, if he's not that skilled in other aspects of life, it probably gives him some joy to, feel that kind of purpose and something. And I can't fault him for having such strong faith.
Yeah, but still, it's sort of like being okay with being cannon fodder. Oh, ballista fodder.
Well, our culture, that when we go on our journeys or when we, not everyone comes back, so.
No, I know, but still. I mean, I can definitely understand this element of, if I can't be useful, don't waste resource on me, but I mean, he's 2 years younger than you. he still has a lot of time. He could be useful for something else. If he's not going to be a good warrior, who knows? Maybe he's going to become the best lumberjack that you've ever seen. But he's already ready to sacrifice himself for the greater
Yeah.
good.
Audiences remembers at that time, kind of not dismissing his friend's arguments, but kind of being like, well, I disagree, so I don't really care anymore. But now he thinks back on it and is like, yeah. It rubbed him the wrong way. It's like, now thinking about it, it's like, that was kind of a waste. Or it felt like a waste. Audience knows that actually later, that guy had left on, after Audience had already left, he'd remembered that guy was going to go on a mission of his own soon. Audience wonders if he had survived it. But, or if he just died as giving himself up the same way he did in training that day.
Who knows? As weird as this idea is, the only way you could possibly know is if you ask Yelkany. Which is a bit of an odd thought going in your mind. Oh, yeah, I have to ask that person who has such a powerful blind faith what happened to the guy who had blind faith and just left the village.
Yeah.
What kind of an answer am I going to get?
Audience also recognizes that's not necessarily the most important. He just wonders what happened to the guy. Perhaps if it was. But no, Audience now thinks about it. He thinks about how he has been both admonished by a god for not sacrificing enough, and at the same time, the reward he felt when he did perhaps risk sacrificing everything for the people, but also, the different headspaces he was in versus where that guy was, like the differences between them, because he's been in both situations throughout his journeys.
Definitely. Audience has seen many of those moments, and probably one of the worst one. That, although the audience doesn't talk about it, it's probably always in his thoughts. The burden he took from for that woman, of feeling everything that happened, the betrayal, but also learning after that she accepted this in a way for you. That's more faith than anyone you have ever seen so far. Someone being willing to sacrifice their immortal soul into damnation just so that one person can have the chance to be moved and to become more. That is the greatest sacrifice you have ever seen in your entire life.
And Audience also remembers how he wasn't thinking about his god that day when he went to sacrifice himself, when he went to potentially die to save all the people of that village, how he'd only been thinking of the people, of saving them, and his god had never even crossed his mind, nor what would happen to him after death.
What does that mean?
And yet he thinks about the time he had thought about his god when you know, when, or thought about himself at least, thought about when Terry was willing to sacrifice themselves in the Wizard Tower and he'd lost hope in that fight, and he thought, well, it's better at least some of us, or I survive for more, from maybe not just for my god, but I have a greater purpose within, and how in that moment he had been admonished afterwards.
That's probably one of the more humbling experience of Audiens. That worm didn't do it for faith. He just did it because it was the right thing to do. He could save his friends, so he did. No faith, no reward from a god. Just complete and total selflessness. I don't know if that thought lingers in your mind, but there's probably just that little thought of, maybe I should talk to it at least once or twice during a week. But I don't know if that thought will remain once audiences wake up.
Yeah.
Maybe it won't.
Audience then also thinks to some of the teachings he had been given. His father, both the teachings his father and Drahosavir had given, and the slight differences. He now thinks about the slight differences between them. His father had always taught him some of the roles of leadership, of being a general, of how to move soldiers and pieces on a boards to be most strategic, to win battles, to win fights. Smaller scale, maybe not large armies, as they hadn't been a large village, but still, some. And then he thought to Drahosavir's teaching, where again it had been those moving of pieces, but there had been a certain element of being willing to sacrifice those pieces to win your way through, a certain element of how to shield yourself in some ways by moving pieces, the importance of you versus the importance of the pieces you were moving, not to just win the battle, but to make sure you were protected at all costs.
Make an investigation roll compared to for what you just said. See if two puzzle pieces wants to connect.
We're back to an 8. I had 2 good rolls, and now we're back to an 8.
It's sort of that moment where you say something that, oh, that's good. Oh, I really should remember that. But because you just keep saying that, you sort of completely miss the point, and there is that element of, why was I saying that? Probably a good reason.
Like, there's something important here. Now I can't remember why.
Where was I going with this? Yeah. Your father always taught you to value every person you send into combat. Well, Drahasavan. Ven or Veer? Because you just said Veer and you said Ven in the beginning. I think that element itself.
Nope, well, Remy's alive.
Well, yeah, that's. I was wondering. Yeah, I was trying to read. That's who I am. There in a few minutes. Apparently, you're not going to be alone in the dream. So yeah. Where was I going with this? No, I'm the one who rolled an 8. So yeah, your father always thinking of saving everyone, as many people as you can, because he was in charge of thinking about the protection of the village. And in a village, if you lose even one person, it makes it harder to survive next winter. But Drasavan has always taught you to see the greater picture, trying to see what is acceptable. And so life has always felt a little bit more like a chessboard with him, which, there's that moment of, oh, okay. You don't know why, but there's a.
He was always very good at dragon chess. I could never beat him.
You've always thought that, of course, he's good at dragon chess. He's a dragon god, so everything, he's going to be good at everything that relates to dragon. But now, you're thinking, maybe I can beat him. No.
It was weird. I could never beat Kiyalkani either.
Yeah. Maybe she always got inspired.
And they played, and now audience is back to it. They started to play so similarly at some point.
Yeah, as if he kept whispering into her ears what she needed to do. That's an odd contrast that you've just seen. So yeah, I feel like I've lost my train of thoughts, and I was trying to go somewhere when you started this dream moment, and it went somewhere else. But that's okay. Yeah. That's the nature of dreams. All right.
But as audience mind flows to do thought, so does the dream. It's hard to.
Yeah. No, that's the nature of dreams.
Yeah.
All right. So, your mind keeps moving forward. You find yourself maybe a year before you decided to leave the village. By then, you've mostly mastered everything you needed to master. You've trained with most weapons. You think you got it using the light. You being able to push this forward, and it may just be a question of focus and why you can't always smite everything left and right, but you think you got it. And you've actually been able to start calling on a few interesting abilities, which probably help to reassure you into the path that you've taken. You've started to be able to sense divine presence during one training session when you saw Kiyalkani getting close and just about to heal someone. You had that moment of, I got it. I know how to do this now. And you just touched someone and you felt that surge of energy coming from who knows where. And everything Kiyalkani has ever taught you, you've learned to use them all. As you touched the target, the poor injured dragonborn, you called out the name of your god in your head. You stopped yelling it left and right. You just called it in your head, and energy just flowed into his body, and he woke up. And there was that moment of pride of impressing your childhood friend. Maybe starting to be slightly also being, I impressed her. It's not just impressing your childhood friend. It's sort of, She started growing. She's kind of hot. It's always nice, impressing a hot girl.
Yeah.
And to be clear, at that age, technically, you can still say hot girl when you're talking about it. Dragonborn
Yeah.
when they're 14. um, but even then, as you're thinking about the whole thing, why did you go on a journey exactly? What pushed you to try and travel the world? You could have stayed close by. I mean, there's a huge city right there, and through that
Mm-hmm.
city, you had access to the other half of the world. You could have went all the way to the other side of the world and started your expedition there, and you would have been in range to just come back at any time and uh, get advice, help. But no, you chose to go on a boat and go
Yeah.
as far as your money could carry you. Why is that?
Well, Audiens looking back in it, hadn't been that odd. His god, Drahasavan, had called to him one day and said, "You know, it's almost time for your journey," which Audiens, most young Dragonborn, had go on their journey, and so he wasn't surprised. What now, looking back on it, surprised or just again made him think about it slightly odd was that, if he remembered correctly, Drahasavan had specifically requested that he go where he did, almost as if he had known that that's where his journey should start.
You remember that day when he suggested that? Going to that far away place, as far down south as you could. And you know you couldn't get all the way to the equator of the world. It's just too far away. And quite honestly, you didn't even expect to get as far as you did. You had to trade your way into a few of those ships, um, which in hindsight probably is not that bad because it allowed you to gain a little bit of knowledge of being on the boat and things like this. But that was one heck of a journey. Why did he tell you to go as far down south like this, taking a boat? Like you said, as if he knew.
I don't know.
You remember?
I guess I'll make another insight roll on that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
I won't do much better. It's a 9. My good rolls are done for the evening.
Yeah. Well, that's okay. You only need to last another 25 minutes.
Yeah.
Hey!
It's okay. What's up, Remy?
Hello.
I'm assuming dominoes fell.
Yeah.
Well, I was.
You've missed Audiens solo stream.
Yeah. We lost most of the players to a variety of problems. So we did a dream to go back in Audience's memory and explore a bit what made him go through all of this and some of the things he thought. So obviously, right now, it's a bit hard to bring you as Remy. What would you think about being brought in as one of Audience's friend? He is just decided to take on the journey. And I was about to say that it was a bit odd at that day why Drasavan decided for him to go there, as if he nearly could recognize that he needed to go. And Audiens tried to think about it, but he let himself be taken by all of the emotions of that. But I was gonna say, right after everything was told, there was another dragonborn there with you, and then I realized that you were there. So how would you feel about being that dragonborn that just got completely surprised that Audience was told to do something so precise, go so far south by Drasaven? I mean, he's never asked anyone to go this. Some people have chosen to do this, but he's never asked anyone before to go this far south. You're a member of the village, so you believe that Drasaven is a god.
If you aren't aware, by the way, we're pretty much full on improvising all of this.
Absolutely. I had no idea this is what we were going to do. So there were even a few moments where I said, tell me, audience, what happened at that moment? And it influenced. So this is full improvisation, but made to help audience reflect on the doubt he has about his god and everything like this. So what did that dragonborn friend say to audience after being completely surprised by your god is asking you to spread the word of us in the world? He's actually asking you, not letting someone leave the town, leave the village and say, no, he's asking audience. So that's a surprise. And go.
Hey, I'm not gonna lie, but why you?
Well, I assume it's, because I'm the champion and he thinks I need to go here to spread. I mean, I'll be honest, I didn't expect to go this far, but I have to follow what he says. I'm sure he has a plan. I mean, he is a god after all.
Yeah, I know, I fully understand. But I mean, there's a number of other Dragonborn here in the village too. I mean, you're the champion, right? But it's like, then why wouldn't he have you stay here?
I don't know. I mean, I always thought I'd be sent to Cornathil. That's the name of Dragonborn capital. Cornathil, to spread the religion there, somewhere near where he could keep an eye on me, but apparently that wasn't in the cards. I guess, I don't know if maybe he thinks I'm not strong enough, needs more training, needs to get stronger before I can return maybe and take on more of the mantle as the champion of this village. I mean, every Dragonborn goes on a journey when they're young. Maybe he just thinks this is what I need.
Huh. Man, just to leave all of it behind to go to, well, a whole other island chain.
Yeah. I don't know, I'll admit I'm confused, but audience remembers feeling confused at that time. Not hurt, but maybe he feels like somehow it's his fault that he got sent away. Like maybe the fact that he wasn't as good with magic, that his priestess, his friend, had gotten so far ahead of him. Maybe his god feels like he had been letting him down recently, and this was why he was being sent. But now reflecting on it, audience wonders if there were other reasons. Maybe again he knew something, or maybe audience was just getting to the age where he needed audience to be away from the village for a while. For whatever reasons.
It's valid. I mean, you've been to Cornathil, and even though you know that going through the portal network takes you all the way to the south, it never actually felt like it was a different island chain. It just felt like it was one big island chain. But now that you think of it, you could have gone so much more further down south if you'd taken the portal and then decided to go. I mean, you would have been able to go all the way to the fabled capital of the Thieflings. I mean, they could be
Yeah.
useful.
Was a little odd that he chose to send me there. Audience thinks reflecting back. This specific, like, there was nothing at that time he felt like that was important, or any reason that this island change should have been more important than any other.
Even you, audience's friend, you've never heard of the island chains in that direction? I mean, you know that the climate is a little bit nicer because you're really far up north, so you have harsh winters. The other end of the island chain that you're on literally doesn't even have any trees. It's just small. It's basically tundra everywhere.
This
That's
does,
yeah.
yeah, this does also make Audience think he literally has no idea how. I mean, he has no idea how his village or the surrounding area has changed since he left. He has no idea what actually his homeland even looks like. He's had all this faith, for so long and spent so much time worrying about that he has no idea what his hometown or friends or anyone have turned into.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I guess now that I'm thinking about it, if you are the champion and there's this strange island chain that none of us have ever heard about, maybe that's the reason why you're going. Maybe you're the only one he trusts to go out and, well, survive long enough to even spread the word.
Maybe. There was, he says he's had other champions of the past that haven't lived up to his expectations, so maybe...
So died.
I've always assumed, I've never asked.
It's sort of a weird element. Even you, audience's friend, has probably noticed this over the year.
We gotta give him a name so he stops saying audience friend. We gotta give him...
Ah, yes. The fabled audience friend number 3.
We gotta at least give a name just for the next, 20 minutes, because I can't keep... or 15 minutes, because I can't keep doing audience's friend.
No, but all right. Well, in that case, how would you like to be called, Dragonborn?
We'll just call him Nyx.
Just call him
all right,
Nyx.
and
All right. There you go. That's easy.
It's short for something else.
Yeah, that we'll figure out later that you might actually have to play at one point.
Dragon Whisperer 3 makes an appearance later in the campaign. Will it be a friend or is it no? There's gonna be an Easter egg Nyx appearance. It's just gonna be like a random dead Dragonborn carcass on some with the name Nyx over it. It's gonna 10, 50, 20, 30 episodes.
Oh no, in which case, let's make this sad. It's like, it's a real shame because I was hoping to be able to replace you as champion one day.
Whoa! Rivalry out of nowhere.
Yeah, but that's the problem, and you sort of realize this as you're saying this, Nyx, and it's something that some people have sort of underlined. Your god seems to have a type. Most of the champion he seems to select are the same dragonborn, have the same dragonborn descendants than Audience. As if there was something special about them, and unfortunately you're not the same lineage as Audience. What lineage are you exactly? You can pick anyone except Audience's lineage.
Well, I was mostly just wondering, like, is this like a purely metallic kind of village, or is this a combination metallic chromatic deal?
No, it's there's definitely a combination. In the village, there's a lot of Dragonborn who have mixed colors, which are their opposite on each side. So we've already established that Audience has a friend which has a bit of a rust color. So no one's sure if he's actually red dragon or gold dragon ancestry because it's the same result, nearly the same result. So no, they're both, and there's a mix.
I'm assuming the other friend, like a different friend from
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
street.
This one is
Okay.
called Arcalath. Arcalth.
There've been 2 new random
Yeah.
characters introduced.
All right.
Actually, technically 3 if you count my
Sorry, in which
mom,
case
which
I'll
I've
just-
never talked about.
In which case, I'll just keep ripping. It's like we'll say black.
Oh, good. Another black. Cool.
All my rivals seem to be black.
Yeah. there seemed to be a theme
Also,
there.
now it might, now that we made it black, it sounds a little bit worse that my god hates them or doesn't pick them as their champions. A little more racist, but we're not kidding.
But anyway, I guess he just like would just be saying as like follow up. That well, I mean, and it's like, have you ever really wondered why all of the champions have been kind of the same? And well, maybe that's the problem. It's maybe a different lineage is required, or maybe one that it's like like maybe if you train hard enough, it's like maybe you could actually like impress our god.
Oh, there's actually some validity to what he's saying because the only other one who's ever went as far as future audience has ever did is Atherin, and he is actually a black dragon. Actually has a black dragon ancestry. So maybe
Well,
there's a valid element there. At least for Nyx there is.
Yeah. For Nyx, there is. So, I do know you've always looked up to Atherin, so I can see where you're coming from, but I don't. I'm gonna. Oh wait, Audience was young at this time. I was still cocky Audience. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not newer Audience. Audience is like, nah. Listen, You don't understand the training we had to go through. It was. I don't think you could handle it.
Oh well, now see here. It's like I am pretty tough too. It's like I tripped you up a few times in our early days. I think I have potential.
This is where we throw in the late session 1v1 against them. at levels 0.5, so we have 6 HP. Like 0 skills. No.
Hold on, let me just pull out my level 5 divine smite. All I have to do is punch you wrong.
Listen, I can maybe 50% of the time cast command because I'm not even level 1 yet. It's random. So, watch out.
Rivalry. Good heavens. We actually have someone to kill in the future.
Well, forget, we're just going to make this sadder and sadder. Just like...
So remember that time, though? I know you've always wanted to be me, but remember what the doctor said about your long-term illness that will slowly... that will slowly... No, okay.
But from your side, Nyx, And then again, the person that gave you that diagnose was Kialkani, who you know as Audiens' childhood friend. So maybe she was exaggerating just to give him a better chance, you know?
Look, she could say over and over that I drink too many soda drinks, but I like to think they make me stronger.
So anyway, where are you going on your journey? Where are you headed off to?
It's like I've been told to go someplace the south of our chain, wherever that is.
All right.
So basically, you're both going the same directions, except Audiens going further down south. So again, he beats you. You're just going a little bit south, and he goes a lot south. Wow, there's gonna be a lot of resentment.
Just don't, just don't get too cocky, because, if you're also one that doesn't have quite what it takes, I'll already be south. Maybe I'll get called to be the next to go on this fateful mission.
This makes me think about that I should probably see how this guy's doing at some point when I return back to life. Let's see if he actually, just so I can mock him that I started a full-on religion that now I'm going to have to destroy because it's turned evil. No, I'm kidding. No.
But look, just because there are so many chromatic descended individuals as part of this religion, that doesn't mean that...
But when you think about it, there's an element, and that may be because you've managed to push away. What?
Sorry, you're good. I just wasted a nat 20. Randomly rolling. I just wasted my next roll as a nat 20.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
That was just annoyance. I've been rolling 8s and 9s on the important rolls, and now I waste a nat 20 on the random roll. I just decided to roll it because I was click the dice.
Or it's the most important roll of the whole session.
The one that it was an acrobatics check, so I can throw it in if you want. Audience, just to show off how much better he is, does a backflip, and I roll a nat 20 on it.
I'm not gonna lie, that is a pretty sick backflip.
Well, if you want to make it a little bit more cinematic, you have that moment where you want to show Nyx just how better you are than him. And so, in a very acrobatic and cinematic moment, you draw your sword and you just make this flourish that completely floors him. He doesn't even have time to draw his sword. You flourish, make a few steps, and your sword find its place right under his neck. You're behind him, and he really doesn't know how that happened. You're forced.
This is why you'll never be better than me. Now,
are you sure about that? Remember, your greatest weapon.
No, don't mock my breath. Audience has never been good with his breath.
That's why I made the joke. But actually not joke. That'll actually be happening. Dodge the breath.
Dexterity saving throw.
Oh wait, well I don't have a +9 back then. So what would that have been? Like a +0?
You're about to leave. Probably a +1. Because you're
okay. It was a 13. Which I think might be exactly what I actually need to dodge the breath.
It depends on what their constitution is.
It does depend on what their constitution is. I was just going that mine is still a 13, I think, to save against.
Let's just...
Oh no, mine's got up to a 14. My bad.
Dragonborn, it's 8 plus constitution modifier plus proficiency
Yeah, that's why I'm wondering what their
bonus.
constitution might be.
No, well, unless you have a +5, audience is fine. So you didn't have a 20 constitution.
I think if Nyx potentially has a deathly illness, he doesn't have a 20 constitution.
Or maybe he's just really fat. I don't know.
Which means I only take half damage, which means I still probably go down because of whatever friend one-shots a level 1.
Hold on, let me... I think it's 2d6s.
Yeah.
If it's a hypothetical first level, 0 level character. Oh shit! I should not have rolled the Raimi dice. I mean that's 10, but reduced to 5 because you saved.
Oh no, I think audience would have still probably, if I'm close to level 1, because I would have had like a D10, and I think I had like +2 con, so I would have probably had like 7 HP, so I'd probably be at like 2 right now.
So no, that's he surprised you, but
Ow!
I guess as a reminder, Black Descent is acidic.
Yeah.
So your clothes that you just bought for your expedition have just been completely burned and singed. And for a brief moment, audience, there's that element that there's that weird element that pops back into your mind as you're watching this scene. You really always had a problem with shirts, huh?
Maybe this is why he doesn't feel bad about the shirt that constantly rips when he does stuff, because at least he gets to keep it.
Audience remembers next one day, just you watch. One day I'll have a breath stronger than any other dragonborn from this village. One day. You'll see.
Yeah. Sorry about the shirt, but for some reason you do forget what is supposed to be your greatest weapon.
My abs? No,
well, I mean, you don't get me wrong. You could grind meat on those.
Oh, good lord! I think I just. Why did I see the image of someone taking a sausage and just grinding it on audience's ribs?
Well, I imagined it too, but I don't think we have quite the same image in mind as we do when we're talking about grinding a sausage on abs.
No, I'm talking about salami. You're talking about something else.
Alright. Then I guess, is there any other role audience needs to do? Let me think. Was there anything audience actually got from this? Audience, before we... Since it's almost time.
Well, no, but on top of that, watching Nyx's reaction, you can't help but to, once again, feel what blind faith can give. There's that element of him. He is trying to please Drasaven, another person in your village, just ready to go against all odds to please Drasaven. There's that theme again of so many people in your village ready to just throw away everything, even their life, to please a god.
Oh, I know one more rule to do. Audience now thinks back to, since he's spent more travel now looking back at this dream, how he, a lot of the other gods he's met, and other gods he's respected that he's met. I mean, he's met some evil ones too, but how it has always felt like more of the evil gods have made their followers through blind faith, and how some of the other gods, the more gods of redemption, or even the sun god, while overwhelming in his presence, has always given some more element of choice to his commands and actions than many of the evil gods have.
All three gods that you've met that are good. The raccoon god, the sun god, the Redemptor God, they all have a theme going behind them of choice.
I guess that would be a religion roll.
Yep.
I don't know.
It depends on what
Alright.
you want to figure out.
Well, I guess what Audiens would have been thinking about that moment is how his religion or how his god is kind of compares or more to what he's thinking about is how it almost seems like the themes of his god tie in some more with some of the evil gods that he's met than some
Okay.
of the good
Yeah,
gods.
then-
I felt like that would be more religion.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, let's see what I roll here. Another nat 20. Never mind, I didn't waste it.
All right.
Not only did you do a sick backflip,
We are ready
Backflip
for the last
flourish.
roll of the session.
All right. With a natural 20 with that. Well, definitely. When you look at this, when you think back and when you think of all the gods that you've met, evil gods have always tried to make you fear going against their will. They've always tried to manipulate you in some way or another. Some even more than others. And definitely, there is that small spark of doubt in your mind that just grows once again. Drosovan has even told you in his teaching, never in plain words, but always implied, that if you can manipulate someone into becoming your allies, well, your ally, it is not a bad thing. Turning an enemy into an ally. But now that you're thinking of it, doing that without helping them see the light, is your God actually telling you to twist someone's will? That does align more with the evil gods that you've encountered. There's the god that you've just encountered, most likely the day before. There is that god, the eyes from the abyss, that promised to twist everyone around you so that you'd become everything you hate. And then there's your God, who tells you that it's okay to do it for the greater good.
the greater good.
Then on the other side, the raccoon god, who keeps asking for forgiveness for everything you're going through. He never asks you for anything in return. He doesn't even ask you to believe in him, to worship him. He's essentially invited you in one of his temples, the garden. His emblem of him is everywhere. Most likely every machine in there worship him in some form or another. None of them have ever asked you to relinquish your belief. They never even cared that you believe something different. Then there's the Redemptor God, which is the very nature of the Redemptor God. To give you the chance to make the step if you want to. Show you, but not force you to do it. And then there's the Sun God. Well, you have probably a bit mixed feeling with this because it involves someone that you sort of care a bit for, and also may kind of slightly have a crush on some level.
On the wanna-bone list, even though everything from the exterior, if you paid attention, probably not that direction she's going for.
That is exactly what you thought. Exactly what you were thinking. What if your god is actually not a good one?
Well, it would make sense with some of the stuff I've recently seen.
There's even a thought that creeps into your mind because it's a natural 20. Why are all of these gods? Why do they all act? The bad ones. You know, there's a fourth god that you've met that you know is manipulative, the hunter god. He's tried to manipulate Jorg several times. But he has a personality of his own. Why are all the three gods in your life that may be evil? Why are they familiar in the way that they act? Why is there a common thread going through each one of them?
And then Audiens wakes up.
That's as far as a natural 20
Yeah.
would bring you away, yeah.
Alright.
Alright. So, just curious about everything that's going through Audience's mind after this dream, after going back on a few things, after the roles, and after reassessing part of his life.
Audiens definitely feels like... I mean, he already felt like he needed to investigate his religion, but he also now feels like maybe he should... If he has the chance, if there's a portal at some point, maybe he should even consider returning back to his village, maybe checking that out, seeing how his home's doing, perhaps even investigating his god slightly.
You might have that opportunity, because you've already stated as a group that you'd like to go to where Bahanor was to investigate, and then go visit the Silver-Tongued Bard, who is in Coharnatil right now.
Audience is beginning to question whether it's just this branch of the religion that's corrupted, or perhaps maybe it's always been corrupted.
And then, I guess maybe breathe on your friend if he's still alive.
All right, well, who knows? Maybe at one point Remy will be able to play Nyx too and figure out what's in the rest of the name. Maybe you'll meet your old pal and some of the others that we've determined their names.
Maybe we'll finally meet Audience's mom and give her a name. Maybe not. We'll never know.
Well, for what it's worth, you're not a rogue, so you're allowed to have both your parents.
No, my mom's... We established... I did mention, you missed it. I mentioned my mom. Apparently, she's a ranger who just wasn't in the village much, and I wasn't... So I barely ever saw her as a child, which is why there's not even a name for her, but... She exists. She's there.
Yeah, except that one day she said she was gonna leave and go get some meat and never came back.
You know, thinking back as an adult, she wasn't going out for meat.
And she just came back from a big hunt the other day.
Actually, now that I think about it, Mom goes on a lot of meat hunts.
Where's Dad? All right. Well, it helped out to flesh out Audience's story. It helped to create something in his mind. Solidify Audience's desire to investigate his religion and do something about this. There are other options also, which could possibly yield information for Audience. Yeah. Interesting episode. Very improvised, but still useful.
Extremely.
I mean, I
think we did a good job for what we had. So.
We did a very good job. I hope there are some people watching us next week.
Thank you for coming in, Remy, and adding some comedy at the end.
Yeah. I might have started becoming a bit too serious. All right.
I guess if I'm thinking about it, just like the main sources of levity in this particular group is either Todd or myself. Maybe a bit of like a dry humor from Avery.
From time to time.
As I said, dry, just comes out of nowhere. It's like, okay.
I don't think he means to say something humorous when it happens.
That's what makes it fun and unexpected.
All right. Well, with this, hopefully next week we go back to the regular campaign, and like I said, most likely, Audience, this is going to be happening the day after, the day where you all wake up. Because you already had a very demanding night on that day.
If we survive next episode, otherwise this episode, I don't know. It was an alternate universe.
Yeah, that's
maybe. Or either that, or it's suddenly it picks up, and now you're playing your friend Nyx, as he does take on the mantle of champion.
Better. Nyx is back and better.
Oh no, we have a few people we could always join in. If you all die, Darahor could possibly be Fisher. You could. Well, I want to put Remy as Nyx because he just played it. We can put Tobiashi as the weird fanatic one. And probably your friend, Arkolf, as you, Audience,
With this random new Dragonborn party. And it's actually just the underground Dragonborn group that's been working with my rival from this campaign the whole time. It's just been leading, and they all just come out of hiding right when our party... For Audience death, they're like, we must avenge and uncover the secrets that he was so close to.
I mean, honestly, if it was a more determined a lineage, if they all happen to have been black descended, then the Drahasavir Black Ops.
Drahasavir Black Ops is so wild.
Oh wow, that would be weird.
I mean, either that or they're all different colors, and they're the Drahasavir Rangers, and they all have to do Super Sentai poses every time they begin a combat.
So we need a blue one, a red one, a green one, a yellow one, a black one. All right.
Alright.
So with this, hopefully next week we go back to the regular schedule. And
No, the line is like, we'll be back to our regularly scheduled programming.
Yeah.
yeah, that's right. Hopefully. All right. So, with this, thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for watching. Hope to see you next week. If you want to support this for some reason, I strongly invite you to. You can follow, leave leave comments. You got Twitch, Twitter, X, and YouTube. If you want to do more, there's donation. There's becoming a Patreon, subscribing on Twitch. And if you can't do any of those, but you still want to do something, or you are already doing all of this and want to do more, well, you can always spread the word of the channel. It helps tremendously. I feel like there's something that I usually say that I forgot to say. Oh yeah, next week, the schedule. It's important to know the schedule. Next Wednesday for the live broadcast. That's 7:30 Western Coast time. The rebroadcast is on Friday.
Because this episode definitely needs to be rebroadcast.
Well, I don't really have a choice.
I mean, you can, if nothing else, you could always just, rather than calling it a numbered episode, it could just be like Drakenmemoria Extra.
Yeah.
Like a big X, TRA. That way you don't have to give it a number, but it's still canon.
Yeah. Definitely. All right. Well, in that case,
If you want audience, you got audience. That should be the title. That's all you got.
Oh yeah, Drakenmemoria Extra. The many faces of Audiens.
Audience special.
Or you could even joke even further, just like I don't remember what the handle is for links for
No, just
for
make it
OnlyFans. OnlyFans, but it's Audience's own.
Just make it super baity, like we're introducing a whole new player or something. Be it like Audience special guest Nyx. Not even Remy, just special guest Nyx, and people be like, "Who's Nyx?" Just Remy for the last 10 minutes.
They're gonna be there also. When is Nyx arriving?
Actually, that does remind me of some TV shows that you'll have something super baity in the advertising. It's just someone will die, and then at the end there's a fly gets squashed, and it's just death count 1.
You could say Audience drops to 2 HP in this episode.
Audience nearly dies.
The Drakenmemoria Extra, the one where Audience almost dies in all caps.
As just him at the yeah.
Well, yeah. I'll need to find a title for the guy.
Extra.
By the way, I would
Audience
like to
beats his
mention
match.
I did roll 3 nat 20s this episode. This might have been one of my best rolled episodes ever.
Yeah. There was probably going to be a fight normally, so
it just stole my 3 nat 20s for the fight. Oh well.
Oh, good heavens!
I'm sorry. Is character development not worth the nat 20s?
The last nat 20 was very good. Actually, 2 of the nat 20s.
Yeah, the first one and the last one, I think, were.
Yeah.
I see how it is. The nat 20 for the sick backflip against your rival ? Not your rival, but
Yeah.
Your jealous rival.
The random Dragonborn that said bye to me and was a little hostile about it. Okay.
I wasn't gonna kill you. I just wanted to beat you into submission.
Oh, wow. All right. Well, that's definitely.
I'm not a monster,
Well,
am I?
Am I? Question mark.
that's what we're
Maybe.
gonna learn next time we see you. All right.
Chaotic evil appears on the character sheet. No, I'm kidding.
Audience uses a sense. There's evil afoot. Oh, Nix, what are you doing there?
Oh, sorry, I was just sharpening my dagger.
Oh, wow. All right. So, what was I saying? Oh, yeah. All of that because I said there was going to be a rebroadcast on Friday. Ah. So yeah, the rebroadcast Friday 7:30 for the Eastern Coast time. And if you want to make map tomorrow, Thursdays, we're continuing the peninsula that we're making. And that's it. Alright, so with this, that'll be it for tonight. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Hope to see you again next week. And as always, stay safe and stay healthy. Good night.
Good night.
Any